Hey guys, Thomas the Genie here, aka Mustached Tom, and I'm here to review Madam Web. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description when I'll head you over to my Discord to help out other, other YouTubers to chill and do all that cool stuff. A petition to help out smaller YouTubers, and a Patreon and PayPal where you can help support me and my channel directly. And sharing will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into my full review of Madam Web. So, obviously, I've actually not seen any trailers for this except, I think, once, but I don't remember it that well. All I know is that I had seen plenty of bad reviews going off on this movie have been deployed as in the making of this review or beforehand. Now, I went across a few of them just to see what people were saying outside, and I typically don't try to do it, but I was wildly fascinated by this movie in particular, especially after the following that, or lack thereof, of one Mobius. I was wildly curious as to what people were heavily criticizing, and decided to finally dive in myself, even though I'm a little late to the party. So this is my review, and I'm going to try to do it as objectively as possible, despite all the things. So I should first discrepancies that I honestly don't know too much about Madam Web from the comics. I can tell you that much for free. I briefly remember her from the Spider-Man show, like in the 1991, and she was a much older character in that universe, so clearly trying to do a different, younger iteration here, presumably, or based on the events anyway. And I was willing to give it a shot despite all their negative reviews, and try to be, trying to take it as an independent film, or disregarding all the previous, what this needs to be attached to, blah blah blah. I mean, I'm sure that's a fascinating talking point, because I actually don't know what this is supposed to be attached to. If this is, like, supposed to be attached to the new Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I'm not sure if it's attached to that. I'm not really sure by the end of it. But I digress. So, the movie actually opens up fairly straightforward enough, and quite frankly, I was anticipating for this movie to go off the rails pretty early, but I was a bit surprised how long it took for me to be like, okay, this is, like, actually shit. So the movie starts in the 70s, 1973 to be exact, somewhere in a forest. I believe it's Peru that they're in. I forget but whatever. That doesn't really matter. And we're following Madam Web's mother at this point, or rather Casey Webb, as she's referred to for the entirety of this movie. They actually don't do the whole, like, she can be Madam Web in this or whatever. They don't do that in this movie, which is, I thought they were going to be honest. That's one thing that I was a bit surprised by, but here we are. Anyway, back to the beginning. We find out that she's researching for spiders with these and we get told that they have particular powers here in this location that can grant super speed, super strength, the whole, well, Spider-Man stick, nonetheless, and some variants, I guess, apparently. And she thinks that this will be a cure for her daughter, as we'll learn later on in the movie, as she has some type of, I don't remember, I didn't write it in my notes, I don't think. Like, she was, like, suffering from something or other, I don't remember what it was. No, I didn't write it in my notes, but that's the reason why she's here. So she is currently there pregnant, but she's, you know, desperate and all that. So once she nabs the spider, her, one of her clientele, the one that she hired on, I guess, to, like, protect her, like, think, like, from the Tarzan movie, what's his name, oh man, I'm actually blanking on the guy's name, the hunter guy, I'm completely blanking on his name. Nonetheless, this guy, once he sees the active spider, he proceeds to shoot two of the people and takes the spider for himself, threatening to kill anyone who dares follow or something along those lines. And the toe of wanting to have the spider for, you know, good purposes, she tries to hold on, and she is shot for her way of doing things. Thus, a native of the land who I guess already has spider powers, I'm guessing based on their movement, picks her up after he's, like, long gone or whatever, and proceeds to take her to this, I'm just gonna say, a magical pond of sorts. I don't know. So I was like, fine, whatever. Up until this point, I was like, yeah, fine, magic pond, whatever. You know, there's, like, nonsense and stuff, you know, suspension of disbelief, right? Up until a certain point. So I was, like, willing to buy, like, sure, like, his magical properties or whatever. So she's able to, after getting the spider bitten, her baby is born. Thus, the blood travels to her baby fast enough, I guess, that she has dormant powers, I guess, up until a certain point, up until we currently see her. Which we cut to 2003, which is why I was confused about which Spider-Man we are following. I actually did initially research, like, wait, when did Spider-Man 1 take place in universe? Apparently it took place in the year 2004, so, like, a year later. I was like, oh, that can't be right, you know? So I'm guessing it must be the Tom Holland version, I guess. I don't know, again, I don't know. So anyways, we follow Casey, who is a paramedic, and after she's, like, driving and doing her job, getting people to the hospital, and we're followed by her assistant, Peter, or rather, sorry, Ben. See, my mind already did the thing. Yes, apparently this is the Ben, the one that dies, like Ben Parker. Now, I'll be frank, when I heard his name was Ben, I didn't actually make that connection, nor did I do the research beforehand to know that his last name was Parker, and I guess he might have had a name tag that I never paid attention to. I don't know what it was, but I didn't put two and two together that he was apparently Ben Parker the entire film. So that's on me, I guess. Whoops. But anyway, it's not too much of a hassle, I guess. So as they're doing their stuff, we see her pass by this girl who like flips her off for like jaywalking or whatever, and then almost hitting her. And after she gets thanked for doing the driving, I guess, even though she's like trying to put it on the guy who's doing the work, Ben. He's like, the kid's still insistent on giving it to her, so she takes the picture. And from there, we then cut to the two of them, Casey and Ben there, talking about their relationship status, or his rather, and him talking about him finally finding a serious partner, a significant other, as it were. And he reads his fortune about, and I didn't write down what his was specifically, but I did write hers down in rather lack thereof, being that she had no fortune. It was an incomplete one. At any rate, so after that, she's like putting stuff away, and she finally opens up her briefcase, this briefcase that her mom left her, I guess. She begins to look at the stuff that is there about this whole spider stuff and all that research that she had left behind. Now, I've seen people say and criticize, like, why wouldn't she have looked before? I mean, since it's not in the movie, I'm not gonna bother speculating, like, why she wouldn't. I mean, it's just not in the film, so I don't know. Maybe she was busy being a paramedic. I mean, from what I understand, that's a pretty hefty job. So who knows? Maybe she's like busy for a long period of time. She may have just forgot about it. I don't know. It could have been a number of things. I digress. Let's see. So she gets on another call, and this situation is much more severe, and yeah, it's poorly edited together, but point still being is that like she is like needs to get in the car of this upside down car, and then the guy in the car is like, she's trying to help out, and Ben's on the other side, and they unattach him, and then Ben pulls him out, but she's still in the car, so it begins to fall over with her still in it. She is under, I think it was cardiac arrest, I believe it was, for a moment, and brought back. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, I kind of skipped ahead a little bit here, but that's okay. Hold on. Briefcase. Okay, never mind. So yeah, while she's in her dying state, she begins to finally activate her powers. And we see all these like spider webs like jut out from her body, and it's like, oh, so an awakening has happened of sorts. So it was dormant, now it's active due to a near-dying state. I guess she never got again, based on, in good faith, we'll just say that this is her first, like, circumstance where she was put in a situation where it was near death for her specifically, I guess. And after that, I believe this is her first encounter after this, where we see a short iteration of her heading back in time, or having a moment of, as she thinks of it, as deja vu. Now, this is her primary power, and I've seen people criticize this. And yes, I've seen people criticizing, saying that they use it too much, and I don't think that's a good criticism. I'm just gonna be honest. I think, for the most part, from what I can remember of the movie and what I have in my notes, I think her powers, surprisingly, are fairly consistent, surprisingly. I know that's a shocker to hear someone say something good about Madam Web, but from what I can remember, I think her powers are fairly consistent. And again, I could be wrong, but I think for the most part they are. From, again, based on the references that are in the movie, they seem consistent anyway. And until proven otherwise, I guess I'll just say that they are, for the most part. So anyways, we have our first run-in with the villain, which is actually the guy from the beginning of the movie. And I will say, looking at this guy, I had a moment of, like, it bursted me out of the film seeing this guy, because he kind of reminded me of, like, the Twitch guy, Hassan Piker. My mind, every time I saw this guy, I was like, oh, that just kind of looks like Hassan Piker, the Twitch guy, the politic Twitch guy, yeah. So that was pretty distracting, admittedly, but, so for the case of memes, I'm gonna call this guy Hassan Man, like Spider-Man, but, you know, whatever. So, he's dating some woman at the opera, and they go back to his place. They're smoozing, they're making out, they're doing the do's. But he's talking about this vision that he's had about these 3 women that are going to kill him at some point in the future. And it took me, in retrospect, to realize what this movie was reminding me of in terms of this, and what movie did it better. And I fucking nailed it. Kung Fu Panda 2. Tell me that this doesn't remind people of the plot of Kung Fu Panda 2. We have a villain who has, you know, been prophesized to be defeated by this warrior, or in this case, group of warriors, and they try everything in their power to prevent it from happening by killing them earlier in the process, but failing to do so, and thus making their destiny, as it were, come even quicker than they were expecting it, happen even faster by trying to prevent it. This is literally just Kung Fu Panda 2, but slightly worse. Sorry, majorly worse. Yeah, that's what this movie is. Like, that's the plot of this movie. If you really think about it, it's just a copy of that, but, like, without the Kung Fu, and a lot of the badassery that comes with that movie, but, you know, it is what it is. So anyway, so we cut back to, oh, by the way, sorry, before cutting back, this woman, for whatever reason, this is where I already started having issues. I don't know why she was aiming to kill him, but she was, apparently, for whatever reason. It's never explained. Proceeds to try to pull out a gun. He kills her, and we proceed back. By poisoning her, by the way. Meanwhile, we cut back to our heroine, Casey, at a cookout, trying to get over the little deja vu event that just occurred. She's trying to like, oh, that was nothing, you know. Deja vu. It's like a thing that happens like every so often, right? You know, the pretty typical movie thing for a circumstance like this. Think Final Destination, like that, but not the immediate freak out. So yeah. So they meet up with Ben's I guess at this point wife. I mean they're she's currently pregnant, so I guess their relationship status is deep enough. I don't know. And he brings up her parent, her mom specifically. And, you know, she was like, oh, I don't know, she just didn't care or whatever. So she heads back to the job again. She's on the job, and now it's beginning to affect her work, where she's on the job. And I'll say this, again, for a movie that is pretty bad, I'm gonna say this is probably the best use of her power, being like, it's still early on, it's still hard for her to tell, like, what's going on. So she gets another vision, this time of a body, and her hands are currently taking care of a person, so it's like it's transitioning between the person she's taking care of and the person she will take care of in a few moments. I thought this was surprisingly, again, for a movie that becomes utter dog shit, surprisingly effective. For, again, the gimmick that it's going for. I gotta say, again, the use of powers in this movie, again, to the film's credit, is surprisingly fairly consistent. Again, to my recollection and what I have in my notes. I could have missed something, for all I know. So yeah, she's freaking out. She's looking all over the place, trying to piece this together. She kind of puzzles it together too slow, though. Well, to a degree. She realizes the person that it's going to affect anyway. So she's like trying to prevent the guy from leaving, and he's like, no, I'm insistent. So he goes on, and he gets in the crash, and we see her do the same thing we saw in the vision. So, and the reason I think that this is a great use of the power is that it was kept vague enough, and I think that really is utilized, as well as the first one, to be like, she still has her doubts, and this is sort of overwhelming her, so things are, at least from her perspective, lining up quite nicely, surprisingly. It's where the movie begins to head in the other direction. Our villain is where I begin to have some serious issues with, and I already pointed out the first flag, or, you know, weird note of the woman just trying to kill him for, again, whatever reason. So Webb, as a character, so far is fine. Up till this point is fine. I'm having no issues with her for now. I think people will get my drift if we are picking up what I'm putting down here. So anyways, so meanwhile, we cut back to Hassan Man, and he's like demanding this new woman that he's abruptly hired on, I guess. That's done off screen, so again, another flag for him. What the fuck? You could have had a scene like prepping that, but I guess not. and for them to scan from his visions what these women would look like years prior. And keep in mind that this is back in 2003. Like, technology back then probably wasn't... I mean, they keep prompting it as if technology was pretty advanced even back then. I put a question mark next to that one. I mean, as advanced as getting them down nailed specifically, and being able to super track them regardless of location, as long as they can catch them on camera. Again, I'm not... whatever. That part's like, whatever. So, we cut back to our main protagonist, and now she's, like, doubting herself, and she's like, And so she gets another vision of this pigeon dying by slamming into her window. And she's like, hold on, let me see if I can actually, like, change the events. Like, because she, like, backtracks, obviously. So she opens up the window, thinking, like, nothing's gonna happen, and lo and behold, the pigeon flies in, and people criticize that she was making direct dialogue to her saving the bird. I guess, like, the dialogue was very blatant. I didn't even catch what she said, to be honest. I'm guessing it had something to do with her being like, oh, the pigeon's alive now or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would be a little bit surprised if, just speaking from personal experience, if I experienced 2 deja vu things where I couldn't prevent a thing from happening, and then suddenly I can prevent a thing from happening, I'd be like, holy shit, I actually did change the thing that I saw. I don't know, I think I'd remark about that, maybe. Even to myself, I'd be like, holy shit, at the very minimum, I think. So maybe it was just a bit too much. And fair enough, I guess. Anyway. So she begins to get more visions, surprise, surprise, of this attack that's going to happen. This is her, like, she's, like, heading out, she's, like, making her way to a train station. And lo and behold, our three future women in the past are all gonna end up in the same location. Because fate and destiny are, no, it's all entangled, all webbed, I'll get it. So, they all end up there, and the villains are remarking about it as they're, like, looking on. So they all get on the train, and as she passes each one, as, you know, she's kind of looking around, and her visions are becoming more and more prominent about, like, what people are gonna say, so on and so forth. She gets future visions of, like, how this Hassan man will attack them. And it happens for all 3 of them, so she knows that they are in the most danger of this Hassan man attack. So she's, like, freaking out, obviously, because it's, you know, overloading her and all that good stuff. So she begins to insist that they're gonna get attacked. They don't believe her, but they kind of end up following her, at least 2 of them do. The 3rd one she has to, like, steal the board of and then make their way outside. And now this is where things get really confusing. I think because she sees him on the train eventually, like, coming towards her, and we see them get out of the train. he's still in the train, and this is not a part of the vision anymore, right? As far as I can tell. And this is, again, an issue with him, not her. So, we can see him on the train, and the train's heading in the opposing direction. It's going to the right, let's say. The Hassan man in the costume appears to the left of them. How the fuck does he teleport? Last time I checked, spiders don't have the ability to fucking teleport. And I didn't see no web at any point. I didn't see him web out of the train, so I don't think that's the answer. So, he fucking teleports the opposing side of them and begins to wall crawl towards them. And she's like, that's your attacker, that guy. And they all see him and they all begin to actually legitimately freak out. Whereas they were all kind of doubtful but kind of following her. Now they're like, oh yeah, let's follow this woman that's, getting us away from this crazy guy. So they follow her, and this is, again, where the movie gets baffling again. The police intervene, or attempt to, but they're trying to arrest her. Now, I think that there is clearly a scene cut out of him, Hassan Man, putting out like a tracker or like knowing her from the database or whatever and being like, we'll pin it on her if anything goes wrong. There is a scene missing in this movie that indicates that, because this comes out of nowhere as the movie is presented. Where the police are blaming her for kidnapping these 3 young women. And it's like, what the fuck? And we see Hassan Man taking out all the other police as they're trying to escape. It's like, what the fuck is happening? And then we learn later on that none of them reported this Hassan Man? Like, what the fuck was happening? And again, that's all on his point of view. That's all his issues. She's been surprisingly consistent so far. Every issue I have is currently with the villain. It's like, what the fuck were they doing with this villain? They needed to tighten him up way more to make this, have a level of, oomph and well-writtenness and craft in terms of like where everything is in the world. I think a lot of it falls on the lack of what they were trying to do with the villain, more so than our main heroine anyway. So they get out. She is like willing to desperately steal them a taxi, so she does. They get in the taxi with her. And we learn our characters' names. We have Julia, the redhead. We have Anna, the Hispanic one that's like gonna be deported if she's like, and Maddie, the rebellious black girl. And again, they think that she is the kidnapper. That's what they play on the radio immediately. It's like, again, you probably could have cut back to Hassan Piker, or Hassan Man, rather, saying something to his inn lady to, like, set that up, or something, but there's nothing here to, like, juxtapose why these events keep getting skewed in this way. It's not built up properly. So she kind of is like, they're traveling, she's learning about them. She learns that, again, she's bumped into all 3 of them before. One of them lives in her household, or her apartment rather. As I mentioned, the one that fucked her off, and the other one knew her from something or other. I forget the other one, if I'm being honest. And their personalities are nerd, and the cocky, like, confident black girl, I guess, is what she's going for. And then the Hispanic one's like, I'm gonna get deported. I don't know. Like, they do not spend a lot of time fleshing out these characters, or as much as I think they probably should have, considering. They definitely needed to give them more harrowing backstories, because it seems like 2 of the 3 of them, based on where the story ends up going, probably could have gone back to their parents, all things considered. Spoiler alert, I guess. She ends up, like, adopting all 3 of them. It's like, huh? So anyways, now we have issues with her. So she brings them out to the forest, and she's like, okay, I need to go back to that research because now I'm re-fascinated and, you know, whatever. She says, you ladies stay out here in this forest. I'm gonna take 3 hours. 3 hours! She literally says she'll be away and not to do anything except be in this forest for 3 hours. That is a long ass time to be nothing doing in the forest. My goodness, what was she thinking? This is definitely the first part where I tilt my head and go, she wouldn't do that. I mean, granted, she seemed a bit frustrated that she had to be forced to be taking care of them in this given circumstance, but I don't think she would necessarily leave them in a forest for 3 hours. I don't think that fits. I don't see the connecting tissue between A and B. It doesn't fit. The puzzle piece is not quite fitting there, so I definitely take issue now with our main character. And spoiler alert, I guess again, they end up leaving because, yeah, they got hungry and they don't know what the fuck they're doing in the forest. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, while they're like farting away, they're talking about their living situations, and again, they kind of bring up their families very loosely here about like, oh, you know, one of their family members is gone or whatever. And that's like the most obvious one. That's like, okay, yeah, she could get adopted, and it's like, okay, the other one, her parents are away in China or somewhere along those ways. They'll probably be back eventually, so she could probably go back to her parents. Well, I guess not anymore. And then, you know, the deported girl, her parents were, you know, already, whatever, deported. So the nerdy one was the one with the gone parents. So yeah, after fluffing about, they get hungry and they're like, we should probably leave. Or at least they nag the nerd into leaving, and then they head into a diner. And it seems the cut of this is fairly bad, I will say this. It's like the car one. Maybe this is even worse. So they cut from them being in the forest to them being at the edge of the forest, or like already on the street, to being to get to the diner. And the reason I mention this is because we're going to see Madam Web return later on, run through the forest, get there pretty quickly through walking, and then struggle to get there on car later on. As if getting there on car took longer, but somehow she got there earlier. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can explain that. Maybe the forest was deceptively longer. I don't know. Um, so one of the guys at the diner is like, "Oh, I'm gonna call the police because I see these three girls, and it's already in the news that these three girls are missing." Which, again, that feels like we're missing another scene from Hassan Man about like them getting it on the news this fast. It's like, how the fuck did that happen? Like like every time, it's like, how are you doing this? Are you like Magic Man? I mean, I get that he has the spider suit, but I mean, come on, we have to have some building blocks still in our story. That'd be nice. That'd make a story complete instead of being completely shattered in pieces like this, you know, representation to my left. I mean, right. Technically speaking. Anyway. So they're at the diner. And as I say, she returns to the forest. We see her walk up, and the spider, Hassan Man's gotten there. Like, approximately at the same time she does, or slightly after. I forget, like, the timing on this, but point is that he, like, kills, like, two of them, or all three of them in the flash forward that, you know, it's gonna obviously flashback to, so she can actually drive there and apparently take longer, or seemingly take longer, and then get there faster. I don't know. So they're dancing, they're doing their little flirtatious dancing for the guys at the little diner there for whatever reason. And she drives into the building itself. I mean, I guess that's a way to get rid of a Hassan Man, for temporarily speaking. I don't know what they're gonna do. The building people are gonna do about that. But she's like, "Get in!" So they rush out. And they get out of there. They end up at this hotel, motel, or whatever it is. She takes a late night drive and she heads back to the diner. And I'll admit that this is probably the most bizarre scene that happens in the movie. Probably where her powers become a little hard to tell what the fuck is happening. So this is actually the one I noted. This is where her and him are like talking. But it's like blurry, and it's like he's flashing, and it's like, I don't know, like they're like vague threats of like what he's gonna plan to do versus, you know, what she's trying to gauge the info out of him. I guess she's really talking to him. Yeah, I don't know. It seems a bit baffling. And I don't know what she was trying to gauge from that. I suppose after she wakes up from whatever that was, this dream, quote unquote, because she wakes up as if that was all a nightmare, the whole meeting him, the whole thing. Which is why I'm like, I'm not sure what that was exactly, to my point. So she learns from their encounter that he has a poisonous touch. The longer he holds on to, the worse it gets, blah blah blah, fine. So she's learning about how the different the girls have their different issues about how we can't go to the police, about the deportation, learning about how they can't go to their parents while they're away, and blah blah blah. So she's like, fuck, I really am stuck with these girls still. So she figures she needs to go back to the roots, go back to the basics, so she hands off all three of them to Ben to head to Peru. I guess she just fills him in off screen because he's like, yeah, I guess I'll do that. So she gets more visions when she arrives in Peru, however long that takes, and spots a guy who knows of her arrival, and she's like, yeah, you should trust me or whatever. So he guides her to the place where she was birthed. And pushes, and I put this in quotes, her spirit into the water. Here she gets visions of the past about what her mom was really doing for her, because she didn't have that exact context that we as the audience already had. And she's like, oh my god, she did care. And then we have the line. And people have criticized this because they're clearly trying to do, with great power comes great responsibility. It's with every Spider-Man iteration has done before, so, you know. Except, he says it backwards. With responsibility, he says, powers will come, or something of this nature, which is... Huh? What? Why would you flip it? What the fuck does that even mean? I've heard people criticize. Well, based on what we saw earlier in the movie, I'm guessing the context was when she got to go save that guy, aka doing the responsible thing despite her own safety, it's when her own powers literally activated, so technically that ended up being true to an extent. At least for her. I don't think that's meant to apply to everyone, as some people have been trying to point out that that could mean it to be. Even though the flip side of with great power comes great responsibility should apply to everyone and can apply to everyone, which is why it's better. Because it has a broader stroke. It allows people to interpret what power means and what responsibility means, and it has all that different, it has a lot of utilization. Here it's way too droned into her specifically, with it being flipped, for me to be like, well, this can be applied to everyone. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. I mean, maybe in an extremely rare case, maybe, but that is an exception to the rule in which we call a miracle, by the way, even to this day. Anyway. So, Ben's wife is giving birth early. Oh no! So the three girls, or teens, are with them, still. And they're like, oh no, we need to be there, I guess. Because we need to stick with Ben or whatever. I don't even remember why they're following them. But the bad guys pick them up because the plot needs them to, the bad guys, to pick up the good guys. So we have one of our good guys conveniently look out the window and have a camera. We see it on the thing. We see it pan out to a camera that's pointed at her. And Hassan Man's like, haha, we spotted him again. I'm gonna go over there with Tracker Lady doing the tracking part of it. So they beep the location, and then he's gonna head over with his suit. So as Casey is returning, we have her return to the house, see that they're not there, see the wet floor, and kind of pick up, what was putting down, on top of getting visions, obviously, of what's happening, or what's going to happen if she doesn't get there, rather. And proceeds to get to them via car, and then through hospital truck after taking one. The one that arrives at their place. Late, by the way, but whatever. So she ends up following them. We finally see the bad guys do a thing, like messing with the traffic, to mess with the team of our, Ben, pregnant lady, and our 3 teens. We actually see what the other bad guys are doing to interfere, which is what should have been happening consistently throughout the movie, because I do think that if it had been consistent, I don't think that this movie would be as bad as people are putting it out to be, quite frankly. I mean, with a little bit tweaking in the writing, I think this movie actually could have worked. I really do. Because there's something there. There's something here, obviously. It definitely needed a few more tweaks, but, in a few more scenes, obviously, we worked in there. But they all get in the police truck, and she tells them to defibrillate the roof on her cue. Now, I don't know enough about how defibrillation stuff works, because she, when she cues it, she, puts it to the roof of the truck, and it hits a guy on the roof off of, Hassan Man off of it. Again, I don't know if that would actually even work. I don't know. And they begin to flee into a flare building, or a firework building, rather. Up where she's getting visions more and more frequently, or she's more and more able to control them. So she's able to guide them as the fireworks gauge them into a new path forward as they were about to, as they're proceeding into the building, and Ben and wife are long gone at this point, because they didn't want to get them involved, but these 3 are in the thick of it, rather. So Hassan Man is on the prowl here. We see him lurking about. They make their way towards the roof, and she had called for helicopter assistance. I guess she just, I guess as a paramedic she would know a code for, for a building. I think that does make sense. I think, no matter what department you work in, you kind of get a gist of, how, the code system for, police or ambulance or firefighters. I think you kind of get a general sense of all of that stuff, no matter what, just in case or whatever. I think that fits. So I was like, okay, I can buy that at least. So she knows the code to get the helicopter over there. So the helicopter gets there pretty fast, by the way, for this final action set piece, as it were. So they're on the roof. They end up getting separated by Hassan Man. So they're all dangling and, all over the place. They're in 3 different locations at this point. She's at the end of this little chase. She's on top of the building. She's the sky, the little sign, the Pepsi sign, that people have mocked because obvious product placement. She's like on it, so she doesn't have a lot of options in movement, and I've heard people criticize, like, oh, why didn't she move? It's like, move fucking where? She was on the edge of a platform. What the fuck was she supposed to go? What? Some criticisms I don't understand. It's like, there's plenty to criticize, but I don't think that's one of them. So yeah, she activates a new power because she was told that she can do this earlier on by Healer Man, that she can do the whole time thing, maybe at multiple places at once. So that's what she does exactly. She creates 3 copies of herself, but herself is stuck. I mean, again, she's on a platform, not like she has much elsewhere to go anyway, so... So she, like, helps out the 3 of them, and then she gets attacked, because, again, she can't move, and not like she had much options to, prevent that exactly. I mean, the only counterpoint that I could point to is, like, maybe she could have just made a 4th one to attack, maybe? But that would have been primarily more so on her fighting skills, and to that I say, I don't even know if she's that great of a fighter. I don't know. So I think that this final moment's fine, I think. So yeah, she gets attacked in the process of saving them. He plunges too, due to his recklessness. The sign falls on him, and the explosion hits her, I believe, if I remember this correctly. And then she plunges into the water, and then she needs compressions again from the 3 who she taught compressions to earlier on in the movie. So, due to the explosion that she was caught up in, she was blinded and chair-bound, I think, are the 2 conditions she fell to here. And yeah, they all suddenly live with her now, after, like, yeah, she just claims all 3 of them as hers in the hospital, and then they all live with her after the fact, which is like, again, I'm pretty sure 2 of them had parents, but, yeah, I'm not sure how that works out. And then we see more visions of them doing their future spider endeavors, whatever, and that was Madam Web. And yeah, again, with a bit more setup, in terms of the villain's perspective, if they had filled out all of that stuff, step 1. Step 2, filled out the teen girls just a smidgen, tighten them up just a bit, right? Probably gave them much darker stories. Maybe all their parents should have been, perhaps for that last bit to make any semblance of sense, even if it's illegal or whatever the criticism was. It's like, yeah, I think with a bit of tightening up, I do think that this movie could have worked, but obviously it didn't. It is not as tight as that, obviously. And for that, I think a reasonable score to give this movie is actually a 4 out of 10. I think that's fair, because I do think that there are elements in this movie that, again, surprisingly work. Again, from every note, most of the time she uses her powers, or her powers are, I guess, more so inflicted upon her earlier on, for the most part, work. Other than the dream sequence one. That's the only one where I throw up my hands and I go, I don't know. Outside of that, I fail to see any other time where it's like, it breaks. I think someone else criticized, like, she has a moment where she flashes back all the way to see her mom, and I guess in this scene, it's like, okay, she meets her mom in this pitch black void and they get to hug. It's like, yeah, even if it was time travel, I don't think it was meant to be as, like, she could affect anything else. I think that was just more so she can interact or whatever with the one person that was there, being her mom. But yeah, outside of those two, and the second one being one that I would even defend, I guess, in this instance, I think, again, the powers are fairly consistent. The writing of herself, I think, kind of falls off the hinges where she suddenly decides to leave for 3 hours. Like, yeah, that's kind of bizarre that she would make such a drastic shift in her behavior thus far. Like, she could have just as easily took them with her. That would have helped a lot. She probably would have found that information a lot faster if she had done that way. And yeah, like I said, it just doesn't fit with like what was set up thus far. I don't think she was that far removed from them to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna fuck off for 3 hours. I don't think that fits again. So that scene obviously needed to be reworked, and a lot of Hassan Man's scenes needed a bit of an add-on. Like, how the fuck did he get off the train and suit up that fast? How the fuck did he, like, make everyone believe that he wasn't even there? How the fuck did he, hire on this new woman who's, like, super tech-savvy? How the fuck, the list is like, oh, geez, it's like, my goodness. A lot more criticisms on that guy. Yeah, so that's what needed to be tightened up. And yeah, that's my review / I guess rant for Madam Web. If you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description when I head you over to my petition about smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server, where you join, collab, shield, all that cool stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.